an investment banker, somebody who has rose to the position of a vice president with country's one of the most reputable organizations. An author, his book has been declared by Amazon as one of the best sellers. Stay relevant. Today we are going to talk to Arindam Chakraborty, who has embarked into the journey of entrepreneurship with his organization called Business Unplugged with Arindam. Let us all welcome Arindam in our fifth episode of Mindset with Career Counseling Online. As we talk about, we find in today's world, we have with us Arindam. Arindam, very good evening, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Hi Sanjay, how are you doing?
Hey, doing good, my friend. So, how are you? Doing good?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Thanks a lot for taking out the time. It's been a
I
busy
hope I'm
schedule.
audible, right?
It's been a busy schedule, but thanks a lot for taking out the time. And as as we as I mentioned, the mindset program is one such session, Arindam, wherein we try to understand what is the drive which actually motivates people like you to choose a different life altogether. Let's say to keep aside the comfortable life, the designated life, the very successful life, and they embark into the journey of entrepreneurship. So you've been an investment banker. You have risen to the position of a vice president. And in couple of days and months, as we are aware, you would have been selected as the president of the organization also. So from there, what was the driver in them? What was the journey? What was the passion which made you come across this different dimension altogether with Business Unplugged? We would like to know about that journey.
Right. So, thanks a lot for asking me to join over here. I hope I'm audible, right?
Yes, absolutely audible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, this is the question that you have asked. Few things that really shapes up this sort of decision when it comes up is
Mhm.
one in terms of the experience that one has over a period of time, and the second is in terms of the opportunity that one sees, right? When you are in midst of something, you get to see a lot of opportunity. So just to give you a background about what really motivated me to get into this stint is that so when I was in 90s, I had done a program on e-commerce, and that was something which was way ahead of time when people were not really knowing about that. And
Mhm.
somehow I came across that program and got the understanding. It must be in the year 98 or so.
Okay.
So I got an understanding that this is something that's going to be real big, and it's going to really shape up in a good way. But then it was way ahead of time. There was not many opportunities at that point of time, as well as the internet penetration and all was not to that extent. So I went on with my job, did my pursue my MBA and stuff like that. So which gave me different exposure. But then that was something which was tinkering at the back of my mind that I have to get into this space someday or the other. And so the objective was one, and that was to reach to maximum number of people, and how my knowledge and my skills and my learning can be beneficial to most of the people I can possibly reach to. Because of the fact that when we were in college, we were not getting the directions in the proper way, or maybe things were not reaching to us back in Kolkata. Maybe my brothers who were in Mumbai were privileged to be getting access to a lot of stuff. which was not getting, we were not being able to get hold of those opportunities. But
Okay.
then I understood one thing, that with the internet penetration and all, so this difference is going to get narrower over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Okay.
always wanted to be a part of this bandwagon, and so I just thought of how I can go about working on this. So I always thought as to how I can create some certain programs which is going to be uh, valued when I reach out to people. And with that context, with that perspective in mind, I have been collecting a lot of things which I have been learning. So what happens when you're working at a workplace? You learn and you work, and then you live it. But then I always made it a habit that I take notes. I place it in my laptop so that it collects over a period of time,
Mm-hmm.
so that I get to understand the practical stuff. And that has accumulated for the last 20 years, which helped me to curate the program which I have developed.
Right.
So that I give the best of stuff to the people who have been not privileged to get access to. So because I see the guys are really intelligent, and they are driven, they are motivated. It's not that people are not, they are not fools, right? But then they are
Right.
not being given the right opportunity. They are not getting access to the right set of skill sets, which has to be placed across by
Mm-hmm.
the faculties or so. And there is some problem in the structure in which the universities and colleges do work.
Absolutely.
I'm not blaming, but then the thing is, for some reason or the other, it's not the best structure that one can possibly work on. So
Right.
that is the gap. So theoretically, we are getting the sense, but then practical knowledge is not something which is really coming up. And that
Right.
is what I
Right.
always want to bridge across, just to bridge that practical skill sets among people, so that they know what needs to be done and how things can be taken forward. So when I saw that the internet penetration happened, where say from 2011, 12, I was getting a sense now it's the time the journey should start. So I was always preparing myself at the back end, getting myself in understanding and knowledge around digital marketing and all, so that
Mm-hmm.
I can get a set of skills to reach more number of people. And 2017 was the time when I really took that call and started with this endeavor. So it's been a decision which was I was working on for, I should say,
For a long
about
time. For a long time.
20
So,
years. So it was not in days for.
yeah. So, Arindam, the thing is, um, see, in a scenario or in a society, I mean, let's not uh, uh, debate on that. But the thing is, in a situation in Bengal, particularly when we talk about, when we see every year a huge amount of brain drain happening, like
Hmm.
anybody and everybody who's getting out of, let's say, IIM Kolkata or IIT Kharagpur, when the target of these people or the professionals, whether it's a right choice or a wrong choice, we are not here to debate that. But when we see the best of the best brains getting out of Bengal in search of a better professional life, in search of better success, you've been working with some of the country's best organization, and you have been working at one of the best metropolitan cities also. I mean, you've been in Mumbai for a huge amount of time. Now, with that kind of drive force, with that kind of finance all around you, with that kind of, let's say, organizational value and brand value along with you, what is, I mean, I understand the passion, but when people are trying to get out of Bengal, or let's say Kolkata, and whenever we talk about, we hear a lot of complaints. But here I see you, uh, a seasoned professional, like 21 years, if I'm not wrong, your total work experience is. And that is so diversified. That is so diversified. And most probably from Mumbai, the next move could have been to London or US. So instead of that, you chose to come back to the homeland. You chose to come back to Bengal, your birthplace. So what is this drive? What is this motivation, which is doing a reverse cycle? I mean, like it's almost like against going against the brain drain and setting up an example. Like as you mentioned that you see a lot of intellect or you see a lot of intelligence also in terms of the new generation, but the applicability is missing. So what was that drive force which you know drove you in such a way that you left behind not only your workplace, not only the big brands, not only your scope to grow, outside the country, but instead you come back to Kolkata. And I'm sure that the choice would have been very difficult. So, what was going through the mind of, let's say, Arin when he was planning to come back to, to the homeland to Kolkata? Because I'm sure everybody around you must be have been advising like, hey, there is nothing left in Kolkata. Why come back? Why spoil your career? And it was a difficult, tough. It was a very difficult, tough war. So, what kept you going?
Right. So, in context of the work that I was part of, so I
Mhm.
was into investment banking, management consulting, and all. So, which led me to like go about different parts of India. Very
Right.
deeper areas of India which many people have not really been to. But as because the projects come up at very deeper areas in different parts of India, so I had the privilege of really getting into most parts of India, travel a lot, and that I think has really shaped up the perspective. So when I went in deeper in those areas, I could see the requirement, the need, and also I would say the opportunity as well, right? So as to what can you possibly do once you see things at a broader perspective. It's
Mhm.
like as it is said, whether you see things in context of abundance or you see things in context of lack, right?
Right. Right.
So that abundance set of mindset is something which I would say had got set up when I traveled across India. And when I say in India, I have traveled extensively in the eastern part of India as well. And there I see that, and once you are in the western part of India, obviously the privileges or the best of things that you can possibly see over there. And when you come to the eastern part of India, you can really then assess what's the difference between the two places. So then you try to understand whether you want to be in the red ocean or you want to be in the blue ocean, right? So
Right.
I thought that this is a blue ocean, and that's how I won't say that I have just come only to do good services. That is definitely one of the reason. Uh, I place my best of services, and I
Mhm.
get it remunerated. So it works in both ways, right? So I have the objective of definitely giving my best to the set of people with whom I've been working around.
Mhm.
That is one, and secondly, being in the online space also, I can do the work anywhere I'm sitting across, right? So
Absolutely.
that gives me that privilege of being in Kolkata and serving the entire nation, and not only in India, but my customers are across the globe. So that way, that challenge is not anymore there. It used to be a major challenge in the earlier days before the internet penetration and stuff like that. So these are few of the reasons as to what gave me that confidence and the boost to really come back to Kolkata. And obviously, it's one of my love cities, and I'm from here. My roots are here, and um, I really love this place. So I want to give the best in terms of whatever I have, because the learning phase somewhere has like working for 20 years, you have learned a lot. Now I think
Right.
whatever I've learned, I have to deliver that. And what better place than the place I already know? And there's a sheer need and requirement of people to get the best of advisors and services. So
And there is this happiness and satisfaction of being contributive to the place from where you have learned and
absolutely.
you have gained the knowledge. So That's
That's
pretty motivating, Arindam. That's really motivating, and this message goes very strong, I believe, to all those people who are always, complaining about, as you say, you can see the picture either in abundance or in the lack. We've been for a long time we've been very busy talking about what we lacking, irrespective of what we can contribute to make it change into abundance. So, talking about abundance and talking about contribution, um, we would like to know about Business Unplugged and how it is contributing in making a change in terms of applicability of the knowledge and literally growing. I mean, because the thing is, the other day I was in a seminar wherein the topic was, is it education or is it knowledge which matters the most? So in terms of applicability, so we would like to know more about Business Unplugged and what it is doing, how it is paving the path for the new generation to apply the thoughts and the lesson as learned along with your mentorship.
right. So, as the name suggests, Business Unplugged. So it's all about looking business in a very different way than what we had been getting to know businesses like earlier, right? So, uh,
Mhm.
see, as I've been working in many spheres in as management consultant, investment banking, and commercial banking, and many other domains. So one thing which apparently came up very clearly to me is that one has to have good understanding around business. So as it is said that there are only four ways in which you can earn money, right? So if we use the term savvy, so you can earn money through self-employment, employment, business, or investment, right?
Right.
So you see, whatever we are doing, one of the objectives is definitely to do good for ourselves on the economic terms. There may be many other considerations as well,
Mhm.
which are not taken up. But then one is definitely to do good for ourselves and in terms of the economic side of it. So once we are trying to do that, we need to really understand the aspects around business, because whether we are working or whether we are doing business or whether we are doing investments, we need to understand how businesses work. That gets to be very important because and when we are trying to understand how business works, then we need to understand how economy works, how industry works, how companies work, how projects work. So we need to have various spaces of understanding, and that understanding has to be very clear. So whether you are working as an employee in any organization, or you are a business owner, entrepreneur, you have to get those understanding very clear. Then only you can take the right decisions. Because
Right.
what I've seen consulting more than 1,500 companies in India and abroad is that people, on account of having shallow understanding on things, they are not really being able to take the right decisions. And
Absolutely.
in context of not being able to take the right decisions, they are not really succeeding in whatever career they are
Right.
pursuing.
Absolutely correct.
So I would say they don't know how to go about taking those decisions basis the analysis they can possibly do. And there are different sources, different tools which has come up in today's world which people have no understanding around,
Mhm.
and they just think things in a very short sphere. They are not getting a
The
broader
broader
uh,
picture.
out of
Right.
things.
Right.
So that is what I'm trying to pass on to two sections of people. One, the I would say the student community. When I say student, it is primarily for guys who have been through the academic qualifications or have
Mhm.
been in pursuit of the qualifications, especially guys who are from a accounting, commerce, or finance background. Say they are pursuing or they have completed their chartered accountancy or CFA, MBA finance, or CAs or cost accountancy or any other. So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
try to reach to these set of people to give them the proper understanding as to how their what set of skill sets they need to build so that they can get the best of jobs. Because when I have been in the industry, one thing got very apparent and clear, that it's not that there is no job, but there is real dearth of good people. The human resource team in any organization is in so much of tension. The human resource team should be in such a many. There's so many people around. There are so many guys with so many qualifications. but still why HR is in so much of tension. And when I looked into it very closely, I understood that it's because that they're getting a lot of resumes, but they're not getting the guys with the right skill sets and attitude.
Right. Right.
Right? And that is the missing link. And when I say the right skills, I mean to say the practical skills. So suppose if someone is working in the equity research division, I'm looking for a resource. I need a guy who would be able to come up with the equity research report. But what is
Right.
happening is that people are getting the theoretical knowledge, but they are not getting the skills to really come up with a proper equity research report. No one is showing me that, sir, I have done this equity research report, please have a look at it. So this is where the missing link is. So if I can give that understanding to the set of people, then that would be great for them. So this is one example. There are many.
I
Finance is a
understand.
very broad area, so there are a lot of things that one can learn, and then only the probability of getting the best of jobs and all comes up, because intellect is there everywhere. I've seen the best of guys, the most intelligent of guys, but then they are somewhere short on the skill sets. So that is one area I'm trying to reach to, and that is the endeavor of Business Unplugged to help this set of guys. And the other is the entrepreneurs and business owners who, on account of not having the right directions, the right skill sets to take their business forward, they are not having the proper handholding or maybe the proper knowledge or the business acumen that they should carry along, especially the small and medium enterprises. And this sort of startups or small and medium enterprises cannot afford to keep high paying consultants with them, right? So they need to get the acumen in themselves so that they may take the best of decisions. So that is the other area which I'm driving. So these are the two endeavors that is parallelly working on in Business Unplugged.
Right.
On.
The other day, actually, in the other day, I was actually going through one of your, research work, which was the fundraising for the startups. I was going through that, and it was like the means to raise funds for your startup and for your entrepreneurship. So that was quite insightful. I mean, like, the way you described the crowdfunding, angel investment, and the VCs and others. I think that was quite insightful. Now, talking about the missing link that you mentioned, somewhere down the line, Arindam, would you agree with me when I say that staying relevant is very, very important? In terms of decision making, in terms of business, in terms of collaboration, or in terms of expansion. Staying relevant is very, very, essential. Would you agree with me?
Absolutely, and in fact, as you know, I've written a book, and by
Yes,
God's
yes,
grace, it
yes, yes. We were able to
yeah.
just about to come to that part only. Yes, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
the title of
Please.
the book is Stay Relevant, and I totally stand by the term because that is, if you ask me, in my stint of 23 years totally
Mhm.
that I've worked there. So what I've learned only one thing, that you have to be staying relevant. So whether you are entrepreneur or as an employee or whatever professions you choose for yourself, to be on the edge and really keeping relevant uh, is very, very required. And that's the book is all about. And I totally second this. I totally go to spread the word, the message loud and clear, that there are ways and techniques of being relevant in today's world, which obviously is going to get modified as the days progress, as
Mhm.
um, time passes by. But then the context would always be relevant.
Always the same. Right, right, right.
So that,
So that book, Arindam, if I'm not wrong, has been declared as one of the bestsellers by Amazon. Like,
yeah,
right? So
absolutely, yeah.
So how I mean, like when we talk about entrepreneurship, a lot of people say that entrepreneurship is doing a lot of activities, doing a lot of things, and going haywire. But the thing is, like if we go by your story so far, an investment banker and a vice president, and from Mumbai to back to Bengal, and leaving behind all the comfort, leaving behind all the expansion and the growth, and coming back to contribute to the place from where you learned everything, and from there investment banker turned into an author, and not only an author who writes a book, but that book has been declared as one of the bestsellers by Amazon, and it is still available for the online purchase, I believe so, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's there, the black.
So,
Yeah.
so the thing is, and when we talk about entrepreneurship, a lot of time we hear from startup entrepreneurs that they start good, they they carry on with a lot of enthusiasm, they put up a lot of effort, but something happens, something goes completely out of their control in the mid, and those successful startup, instead of becoming successful business, are forced to wind up. So, what would you comment on those? I mean, like, is persistence missing, or is staying relevancy missing, or what is it that those kind of startups, which could have been very successful business, finally winds up as a closed deal? What is your opinion on that?
Right. So two things essentially. So one thing we need to understand that whoever, generally it has been seen across the globe, that whoever has come up with a startup or started off with a business has come up with a technical frame of mind. So suppose if I have been working in a pharmaceutical industry for some years, I understood the technicalities around it. Then I thought of why don't I start my own pharma company, or
Okay.
maybe I am a good agriculturist and I would like to start with some farming business or something like that. So
Hmm.
the guy was somewhere, the person had been technical in the context of knowledge, and that prompted the person to really start up with the business. So what is happening that the technical knowledge is there in that individual, but what is missing is the business knowledge. So we need to
Okay.
understand that business knowledge is very different from the technical knowledge. So you may be great on the technical side of it, but then you may not possess the business skill sets which you need to carry. So this is point one. And secondly, the business knowledge is has seven functions to it. If you see it irrespective of which business you are into, there are seven different functions on which any business stands, like marketing, sales, HR, finance, leadership, your technology, uh, operations, and so on. So there are seven functions. So whether you are a solopreneur or you are having you are a major conglomerate, these seven functions are always there. So what misses out is that the balancing of these seven functions. So you may be very good in say operations, but you are keeping in terms of your performance in sales or marketing, or you may be very good in sales, but then you are not good in customer service. So what is happening is the person who is actually starting on with the business somewhere is losing out to keep that balance going on for themselves. And the other thing is people don't take the support of generally we don't tend to take help of an external agency or business coach or someone like that who always keep that perspective going on for you, help you give that direction of that you should be going on balancing with those seven elements. So that focus somewhere misses on, and you go on doing the same stuff in which you are good. But then, if you are not good on the other six elements, then the
Hmm.
business is definitely going to. It's like the spokes in a wheel. If all the spokes are not
Right. Spoken
working,
hub theory. That's the
yeah,
spoken
so
hub
if
theory.
all the spokes are not really working well,
Hmm.
then it's definitely going to fall off, right? So that
Right.
precisely is the thing that happens. So so this balancing of the seven elements, and the other is moving from this mindset shift from the technical understanding to
To the business understanding.
the business understanding,
Right.
and also giving up on trying to do all by myself. This is also another thing which I've
Exactly.
seen
Exactly.
entrepreneurs fall prey to, that they try to do everything by themselves, not delegating. So there are a lot of elements which it gets into be the reason as to why then not assessing the economic aspects properly, not assessing the industry aspects properly, but still starting on with the business as because you are passionate. But then the support system is not there, the regulatory support may not be there, the economic support is not there. So, but still, as because you're passionate, you just start on with the business. but that way it doesn't work, right? So it has to be
Right.
in context of the economic aspects, the industry aspects. All this thing has to be taken into consideration. So there are a lot of things that comes into uh, the reason as to
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
why some companies really don't succeed that.
So it's like a lack of a 360-degree view of the present situation, which many a times results in the unfortunate winding up of the successful startup. And perfectly agreed when you are mentioning this hook and hub theory as to the seven segments of the business, working all in harmony to deliver the best. So I think I absolutely agree with this particular point also, that many a time, entrepreneurs falls a prey to doing everything all by themselves, thinking that itself is entrepreneurship. Like, the more I get involved into everything, I am a better entrepreneur. And many a times that itself appears as a dead trap. Now, Arindam, in terms of the present scenario, like you know let's come back to the present scenario of COVID-19 and the pandemic going on and the chaos happening. So now the whole scenario is changing. The work culture is changing. Indians, we are not that accustomed to work from home, or small office and home office kind of concept. But now, as we have seen with Tata, they are declaring by 2025, the project itself is called 2025, wherein 75% of the employees would be working from home, and only 25% of the essential workforce would be reporting to office. So, Arindam, in such a scenario where the work culture is changing, even let's say our children, the schools are closed, the colleges are closed, so they are going for more of online education. Till date, online education was either for professionals who couldn't attend a class, and attending a class at their own convenience. But now, let's say my 5-year-old, my 10-year-old son, who's in standard 5, also has to go through these Zoom meetings and Google Meet and others for their training. So, in context to pandemic, the work environment, the learning environment has changed. In such a scenario, like, what is it that Business Unplugged is coming up with in the coming days? Like, let's say in area of expansion, in area of knowledge imparting. And because I am aware that since 2017 you've been conducting a lot of seminars and workshops. I had the privilege of joining one of them. It was quite insightful, and there where I learned about the seven aspects of the business, it was quite thoughtfully created content from a research of 21 years of experience. Now, Arindam, in such a scenario where we have to maintain a social distancing, where everything is going online. So, what is Business Unplugged into in terms of expansion, taking in context of the COVID or the pandemic
Right.
situation?
Right. So the way I look at it is both whether it's a pandemic or not. One thing is very sure, and on which I've been working for the last 3 years, is to help companies get into a systemized process. Right. So as it is said, if you cannot systemize something, then it's not going to happen on a continuous basis, and that is what keeps on missing out. So what I mean to say by this is that, suppose if you're taking a marketing effort, right? So that marketing effort has to go on a systemized basis, right?
You're
So
right.
the sales effort then has to be going on a continuous basis, and for which you need to create systems around that. Then only it's going to be proper. So that endeavor was all was there, on which I've been working for the last 3 years, how to help companies to get more systemized in their approaches. And with this pandemic thing coming up, that relevance got more emphasized, right? So the significance of how to get the things more systematic with the help of technology
Mhm.
is something that I'm really working on, so that I can pass it on to the entrepreneurs and the set of people who are looking at. So when I say so, what I mean to say is that if you're working on a marketing system, so what set of technology you can really take help of, so that it really doesn't require you to meet people on a face-to-face basis, or get into a direct interaction with them, but rather like the way we have been doing this thing, right? On
Hmm.
Zoom, we are sitting across at different places, but still we
Right.
are going at with our activities. So this is just one piece of the many other things that can possibly be done, right? So uh, and how you go about doing this stuff also differs, whether you are in the B2B market or B2C market, or whatever areas you are trying to place your services, products, and experiences. So all these things I'm working on as to how I can give better insights and better directions to the businesses, and which is has already started on with the work, and it is getting great reviews from people who are taking up my services in that regard. All these 7 functions that I spoke about, how you can systemize on that and get the
Hmm.
things rolling, and obviously technology is a very important leveraging factor for this, right? So, how we can make best use of technology and get ahead on working on our business is something which I'm really.
So, when I visited your official web page and the website, I believe Business Unplugged already had online training and online registration for consultants across the globe open. So, Business Unplugged was already into adapting this new kind of work and learning procedure. So, Anandam, the other day I was going through a report which mentioned that majority of the companies, and it's not about India, it's not only about a developing country, it's across the globe. Um, the business review said that lot of global companies could have minimized their loss if they had a BCP right in place, right? I mean, like when the pandemic happened, nobody was, able to control it. Nobody was able to go into how to carry on the work and how to deliver, how to meet the clients. So this kind of chaos actually led to, more losses, which now the countries are overcoming with involvement of technology. So with Business Unplugged, I mean, since 2017, a majority of the training, a majority of the learning for the candidates, for the clients, for the consultants was happening, um, online. So, I mean, like back 2017, we didn't have COVID-19. We were not even aware that this kind of new work environment, learning environment could evolve. So back 2017, Arindam has already thought about, going online, taking, training, taking seminar, taking consulting online. So is that what we call a vision or a visionary outlook of a entrepreneur? Is that what we talk about vision when we talk about entrepreneurial visionaries, and they they can see 5 years down year, 10 years down the line, and even what could be the demand, they could foresee the future. So is that what we can talk about as a vision?
Yeah, so vision is definitely a function of exposure, So to be at the right place at the right time with the right
Hmm.
set of people, that
Agree.
also is something I won't take all the credit in myself. Yeah, I had been maybe lucky to be at the right place of knowing e-commerce in '98, which many people had not been exposed to, right? So maybe I was at the right place at the right time, which gave me that vision right from '98. So I won't take the full credit to myself. Yeah, but then once I expose myself to that area, when that triggered in me to then carry forward with the same intent, and not losing out on the steam, though it's that 15, 20 years had passed by, and keeping that urge of getting into that space, no matter how late or difficult it is. So maybe that is where I would take more credit, that I persisted on that vision which I had set for myself. So
Mhm.
that is where I think I would take a bit of
That
credit.
is great. That is
So
great. I mean, we talk about vision and we talk about thinking beyond the present time. So that is one way we talk about entrepreneurship. And Arindam, before we go into lighter questions, my last question to you, as you have seen all the phases of a career, and you carry along with yourself some pretty heavy recommendations in terms of uh, work brand or education. You carry along, as we say, you are carrying along a quite some pretty heavy tags, right? Like IIM, you've been working with Dun and Bradstreet, and you've been the VP of one of the most reputed organizations, and so on. So, Arindam, if I may ask you, like, uh, for those entrepreneurs who are, like fresh out of college and they just want to jump into the bandwagon of the hip and happening of entrepreneurship and being called as an entrepreneur, do you believe some way down the line there is a probability of failure because they lack that kind of experience, which is either gained through education or through working with various organizations? So, what would you recommend on that?
right, so two very important things for guys who are just starting up in business is very important for me to give them that sense, is that you have to have a coach going along with your work side by side, who gives you that support, that direction, which you definitely be missing on not having the exposure of business, right? So that is very important. And the second is to be having the right team along with. So to be alongside with the right set of people, because if you are not going along with the right set of people with the right set of skill sets, complementary skill sets, I would say it's very important. So a proper team, and also a business coach who is going to give you that missing pieces which you have not been able to gather because of the sheer age factor that you are carrying. You have not
Right.
seen the world to the extent. So you need to get into that practice of taking the perspectives of people who have
A
been there
mentor.
and done. So
Mhm.
that's very important.
So a mentor and mentee relationship can ensure a successful, let's say, a successful passage for a startup, from startup to a successful business. I absolutely agree to that, Anindam, that a mentor or a coach is somebody who can actually help you overcome that experience gap, which you gain, like when you are working for an industry or a particular organization for such a long time. In the due course you learn a lot, because you would be surprised. The other day, I had the privilege of talking to the entrepreneur development cell, uh, uh, which has been developed with one of the reputed engineering and management university operating from West Bengal. And when I asked one of the student as to why he wants to become an entrepreneur, the answer was, "Sir, I don't want to report to anybody. I don't like bosses." And I asked him, like, "Have you ever worked?" And the answer was no. So the thing is, either they are watching a lot of movies wherein the picture of a boss is more of a bossy kind of fearful character than that of a mentor and mentee. But even from my personal life, I can say yes, the experience has been mixed one. I mean, not all bosses were as open as a mentor. A lot of people were as a boss only, but over the due course of my career also, I had the privilege of learning a lot. I mean, whether it is Excel or whether it's a Six Sigma implemented project, or even if it is related to something which is resource handling. So, do you believe that a lot of startups are failing because of lack of knowledge, which is constantly prevailing? Uh, because entrepreneurship has suddenly evolved as a romantic, buzzword, like every other one. There is nothing wrong about it. The other day I was reading it in China when we are talking about banning Chinese product and Chinese software. In China, per day, the registration of new startups are 45,000. 45,000 startups register every day in China for startup entrepreneurship, with the ministry. And the rate of failure is per day 72,000. Now, this data is pretty scary. Now, for those who are jumping into this bandwagon of entrepreneurship, what would you say the significance of knowledge and experience? I mean, I understand the importance of a mentor and a coach, but see, the mentor and coach can do a hand holding, but ultimately there are things which an entrepreneur has to do himself or herself. So how does one entrepreneur overcome that gap? Can you just enlighten?
So, see, the way I look at it is when we were also in our early 20s, right? When we are just fresh out of college and we were thinking as to what we should be pursuing. So, how we used to approach it. Maybe at that context, entrepreneurship was not that a buzzword, and we had never thought about entrepreneurship in true
Hmm.
sense of the word. Um, but then we always had that thing in mind that what we should do next. And the way we used to look at it is basis what we get to hear from friends, family, whatever they used to suggest, and that used to be the driving factor for us, right? And basis that we decided, okay, this is the course I'm going to go for, or this is what I'm going to pursue. But in many occasions, we have seen that what we have started off pursuing in terms of courses and all, people have not been able to complete that, or they have miserably failed, right?
Yes.
So that was in context, say 20 years ago. But now with the penetration of internet, we get to know of entrepreneurship, startup, and this is another area which has evolved over this last 20 years, and people are now trying to get to see whether entrepreneurship works for them, right? So here
Right.
also is the same thing. They are speaking to people, getting a message, and also trying it out whether it works for him or her or not. So here also the probability of failure is there. So whether you are doing your studies or whether you are doing entrepreneurship, the probability of failing is always there, right?
Yes.
So you may fail. So there is no nothing bad in that. The only thing we have to see it in the only context is that we can fail, then but still we need to stand up and again give a shot to that and try it in a different way. Maybe the we would be into entrepreneurship, but we maybe need to take a different direction to that, right? So I think this is a continuous process. This is how we all evolve as humans. We cannot we otherwise would have been god if we would have seen what's going to happen to us down the lane for the next 5-10 years. So that never happens. We have to take that risk. We have to have that faith on ourselves, the confidence in ourselves, and see through that. This is maybe this is the thing that I am passionate about, and this is what I should be going ahead with. And yeah, you may definitely fail, and then still we need to find ways and means to succeed. So this is a continuous process. Process is still going on for me and you. And I'm pretty sure it's for all humans. We see that people are working in the best of places in different organizations. They're drawing handsome salary, but there also that stint is going on in that individual. You don't know whether the work is going to be there for him in the next day or in the next month, right? So we
Right.
are all working on edges, and we have to take that leap of faith, and we have to believe in ourselves and our decisions. So how best we can take a decision, that is where people like us would like to help individuals and startups in, so that the probability of success increases.
Is
No one
more.
can say that you are going to succeed, because there are so many factors involved in whatever pursuit you are driving,
Mhm.
right? So there are a lot of things, open-ended aspects. But then, uh, if you are getting a guidance, then that probability definitely increases. And everyone fails. So I think failure uh, is just the next step to success, right? That's how I look into it, and that is what I have gained over this past years that I've worked. So, and my work has also allowed me to meet a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and professionals in my life. And one thing I've seen, that everyone uh, is working on the edge. Everyone is going into that pursuit of success and failure. So that's a process. That's a process that one has to go into. So that's absolutely fine. If people are registering for startups and still they're failing and more registrations coming up, I think that's absolutely good. Uh, because entrepreneurship is definitely required. Uh, there won't be so many jobs where people can really go ahead with their
Right,
career.
right.
So entrepreneurship has to come in, and we should encourage that.
So somewhere, it's like never taking a no for granted and constantly pushing on, because it's by living and working on the edge only that we can move on to the next stage of evolution. So that's
Absolutely.
absolutely agreed. That's absolutely wonderful way of putting and summarizing the things. And uh, Anindam, so uh, if we constantly push the edge. So that is the only way we can move on to the next stage. That's what your message is. That is absolutely agreed. And to all the startup entrepreneurs who are watching this video, see, the message which comes from Arindam is pretty straight and pretty clear as to never taking a no, because many a times we are either taken back by either the people's feedback, or we don't get that funding, or we don't get that right kind of opportunity, or we don't get that right kind of pitching also. But it is not that we need to stop working on our project. It is not that we can let go of our vision, our mission just by like that. But as Arindam has mentioned, by working on the edge only, that we can actually go ahead with the new kind of stage, the new evolution of an entrepreneurship. So, Arindam, thanks a lot for this, serious questions answered in a very simplified way through years of your experience. Now, on the lighter notes, like if I ask, being human or being successful, how would you like to be remembered and why?
So for me, being human would definitely come up first, because the way I look at it is, if you're not human, you cannot be successful. Because
Fantastic.
at the end of the day, empathy and love towards your fellow community and everything, it's very, it's reciprocative, So you have to be
Wonderful.
human first,
Wonderful.
then success would definitely follow you. So, but you cannot pursue success and then without being human, and that is definitely not. Uh,
That is
that
wonderful.
is
That
that
is
I feel
wonderful.
pretty clear basis my experiences in the past.
That is great. That is great. That is absolutely great. Only because today I was only talking to somebody who was mentioning that when the life is filled and preceded by gratitude, the overlook or your way of working with somebody or your way of contributing towards your family or your organization completely changes, because then you get into a contributive mode, which is much better than somebody who's demanding, rather. So you always believe in making things better, uh, people's life better, your team members life better, and the organization's status in terms of revenue maximization also better. So absolutely agreed on that, Arindam. And five characteristics which defines Arindam. That five characteristics which can define Arindam.
Five is too many, I guess. So yeah, I would say a bit of discipline, not on the physical front. I somewhere lack out, but discipline in terms of work. Work discipline is definitely
Absolutely.
something which I carry, which really works good for me. Integrity, I would say, empathy towards others. That is another virtue I think I carry. Uh, uh, the passion, the burning desire of getting into things which I really value. And the last but not the least is sheer commitment. So if I have started on something, then being committed to the cause and then working towards that with sheer commitment over a period of time. I think these few things define me.
Arindam, this is the fifth episode of our mindset program, and I'll agree with you. Um, you know, since the first episode to today's episode, this five characteristics, surprisingly, these are coming up with every entrepreneur that we are talking, and none of the entrepreneurs knows each other, but we had the privilege of talking to other entrepreneurs, just like we have the privilege and honor to talk to you today. And surprisingly, these 5 points are so very common to all the entrepreneurs. So I believe that is the mindset of an entrepreneur, which has the flair of these 5 shades, which makes them come out to the society as a solution provider, as an entrepreneur rather than a businessman. Because there lies the difference between only doing business and entrepreneurship. So that is absolutely wonderful, Arindam, and I absolutely agree to the 5 points that you mentioned. And coming to the next question, um, as an entrepreneur or as a person, what is the greatest fear that is, fearful in terms of uh, in Arindam's mind, either as an entrepreneur or as a person? What is the greatest fear?
I would say the greatest fear is that I'm not able to convince the set of people whom I am trying to reach to with the products, services, or experiences that I'm coming up with. So, if I'm not able to convince them of the fact that my product has a lot of value
Mhm.
and please try it out, because I know once they try it out, they would gain a lot of value out of the product.
Confidence,
But
for
then
sure, for sure.
really being able to convince them, it's somewhere the difficult task. The first time to convince them so that they really try out my product. So that is, I think that is where the challenge is. That is where the fun is of this entire game of entrepreneurship. Because if you are able to convince people of your product, service, and experiences that you have to offer, then life is great, right? So that is a continuous effort that goes on. So yeah, but there is an underlying fear that we all carry as an entrepreneur, that what if I'm not able to convince? And I think that keeps us on our toes, so that really motivates us to wake up early in the morning and then drive ourselves towards that sole objective of reaching out to more people and convince them that listen to me and hear me out of what I have to say and trust in me. So, in one way, what I'm trying to say is uh, that consumer trust. To acquire the consumer's trust is something for which we all are working as entrepreneurs. So,
Great.
uh, that's the fear that we always carry. But that is something that we accept as a challenge, and that's the fun part of it as well.
That's great. That's great. I mean, the fear turned into a challenge as a driving force to overcome the fear. So that is something I would say the trait of an entrepreneur. And uh, if asked, who has been most inspiring in your life?
Obviously, my wife, because as she is with me for the last, I would say, 20. 27, 28 years we are together. So we are married for 21 years, and we had a courtship before that for almost 8, 9 years. So she has been a continuous guiding force for me. She has always been someone on whom I fall back on my good and bad days, and that support, that the feeling that someone is there to be along with has been always that inspiration that works for me.
That's great. I mean that actually wraps up my next question, which I was about to ask, like the importance of family. But that's called hitting two birds with one bullet. You answered the question right back. So it's absolutely when you have your family, and especially for people who are married and people who are embarking into entrepreneurship. I have found that their life partners are, many a times the driving force behind taking some very difficult challenges, because when they're taking a new decision in terms of either leaving the job, like for your instance, leaving the comfort and the kind of lifestyle of Mumbai and coming back to Kolkata and the cultural influx and everything, with your life partner, with you in your decision, I think the journey becomes much more easier. So that is great. I mean, that is great. And if I ask you, name two books which you would recommend to budding entrepreneurs, what would those two books be?
So one of the book is definitely
Stay
Rich
relevant.
Dad Poor.
One of the book is certainly going to be stay relevant. That is my recommendation.
Right, right. So that's very considerate of you. So one of the book is Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I ask everyone to read because
Robert
uh,
Kiyosaki. Robert
uh,
Kiyosaki. Right. Mhm.
so that gives a really uh, fresh perspective to a lot of things because uh, entrepreneurship is not only about working; it's all about mindset, right? So
Mindset.
how you view things is very, very important. And also, the other book, I won't say more from an entrepreneur perspective, but as an investor, I think for understanding business very closely, which is called The Intelligent Investor, is a another book which I suggest everyone to read through because it gives you a perspective of looking at things from a investor's angle. Because if you are not really valuing the money which is being placed across by the set of people, why they do investment, what goes behind the thought, how you look at the different facets of economy, business, industry. You need to know all those dimensions, and
Could
I
you,
think
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Arindam. Could you give the name once again? I would just like to write it down.
the intelligent investor.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the two books I would suggest for someone to read through because it shapes a lot of perspectives. So one is once you build the perspective, then you can take a lot of directions. There are a lot of business books otherwise on many topics, but I think a broader framework, having a top-down
Top
view is
down view.
very important.
Right. Right.
Where generally I see people working on is more of a bottom-up approach. But I think it takes a lot of time, right? So it's always better to have a 30,000 feet look into things and then narrow down the things. If someone proceeds with things in that order, I think that helps a lot to do stuff first and take the right decisions in the right context.
Right. 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 So, Arindam, now, see, entrepreneurship, we understand, knowledge sharing, education, and everything we understand. Uh, like, what is that one dish, one food preparation that will have Arindam stay back at home? What is that dish?
So my one and only favorite is Chinese food. So noodles, mixed gravy noodle is something which really is something which I am attracted the most of. So that is something that would call
No,
it
I
favorite.
can actually see your face lightening up. The way you say Chinese food and noodles. I could literally see your face almost lighting up like a Christmas tree. I mean
That has been one of the reasons for me to come back to Kolkata.
that's very nice. That's very nice. I mean, somehow we share the same kind of passion about the choice of the food. That's also one of my favorite. So yes, I'm sure that back at home these days your wife is cooking a lot of preparing a lot of Chinese foods. So well, from gastronomy to music, what is the kind of music that uh, you know you would recommend or you find peaceful for yourself? Because see, music is as per people's choice, but what is your favorite on your part?
So it's quite varied, I would say, right from Phil Collins to Bon Jovi to many other singers, Cliff Richard, and so on the English music part of it. Yeah, especially the 90s sort of music which we have been hearing, because post that maybe I couldn't spend much time due to the sheer work that I was into. And lately, I have found solace in terms of the Bengali folk music and folk music as well as Bengali band music. That
Hmm.
also is something which is very interesting for me. I love few of the Bangladeshi bands which are there. Like
Okay.
there's a singer called Topu, uh, whose songs I really love. There's Orno, whose songs I really love. So so it's been mixed. I would say Arijit Singh is definitely one
Okay.
person whose songs are definitely there on the Hindi side of it. So it's been mixed. I have been like
Great.
whatever
Great.
sounds good to the
Great.
ears. It's
Great. Great. So that's a whole combination. We're talking about investment banking to entrepreneurship to being an author to being somebody who has been across the countries and outside the country also. So it's been a wonderful journey. So so far, Arinam Line, from Career Counseling Online and from our side, we wish you all the best and Business Unplugged all the best. And just a question that arises in my mind when you were talking about the relationship of a mentor and mentee and the need of a coach. I get from your side that of late you are you have opened this segment like hire me, wherein you are going as a consultant, and are you including startup entrepreneurs also, wherein they can because as I understand, a business house or a big business house can afford a certain kind of fees, but an entrepreneur or a startup entrepreneur cannot go for that kind of price or that kind of fees. So are you open to those kind of entrepreneurs who are seeking your advice? I mean, obviously, against the fees, against the service fees and everything, but are you having that segment also included under that hire me segment?
right. So I'm open to all, whether it's solopreneurs, startups, or small and medium enterprises. I'm open to all. It's not only the fees that is the point of consideration for me. That obviously is one, but then that's not the end thing. I really want to see the passion uh, on that level coming up from the entrepreneur, and if I feel that I can seriously contribute to that individual's prosperity and greater good for the organization and that individual, I would definitely be eager to work with. And then we can discuss out on the economics. So that is the second part of it. But then I'm not ready to work with all and sundry, because everyone doesn't come up with the same zeal and enthusiasm and the vision that what I intend to look into in a entrepreneur. So if the frequency matches, then obviously we can work, and then the economics can be taken care of.
Right, right. So you have that. I was going through the website and I saw that you have that elaborate contact contact form wherein people can fill it up and they can get in touch with you directly. And it was pretty easy to get through. I mean, your phone number was mentioned, your email ID was mentioned, and there were blogs which were written. I was going through the fundraising part, and so it's the communication wise, it's pretty easy. And in the we have already included your social media presence and your official website in the description. And for other viewers, we are going to put all the details as to how you can get in touch with Arindam in terms of either consulting as a startup or as but the thing is, as I understand from Arindam, like relevancy and staying relevant to your passion is the first thing that is to be considered. I mean, you before you even talk about the economics, you should be very very aware that while you are communicating with Arindam, you are carrying a lot of passion, you are carrying a lot of homework, and you are carrying a lot of enthusiasm with you. And I can assure you that you can have Arindam as your mentor along the journey, which would ensure the success of your startup from a startup to a successful business. So Anindam, it's been great talking to you, and I really appreciate you giving this time at such a late hours. It's been a hectic day for you, I understand, but thanks a lot. It has been quite an inspirational kind of talk, and my takeaway out of all the talk is staying relevant. I mean, I keep on mentioning this because I personally also agree to this point. It's not only about the book. That book is recommended for reading because I had the privilege of discussing with Arindam as to the content. I wouldn't be disclosing the content and the way it is written and structured over this video. I would personally recommend. See, this is not an advertisement, but I would personally recommend all startup entrepreneurs and people who are, it's not about only startup entrepreneurs. It's about anybody and everybody, because in our life, I understand the kind of chaos we develop is because we lack relevancy. So I think that book can give a lot of direction to our life, to our entrepreneurship, and even to our personal life also. So Arindam, thanks a lot. It's been a really really learning experience talking to you. We would love to have you again in our show some other day, talking about the fields that you love the most, wherein we would be taking more guests, we would be taking guest calls, and people can ask questions. So for today, I literally thank you, and I wish Business Unplugged all the success, and you all the success as deserved, because the kind of hard work, the kind of passion, the kind of dedication that you have already shown by coming back to Kolkata, coming back to West Bengal, and considering this generation as a change maker, that is really appreciable, Arindam. And I really, really wish you and your organization the very best. And we would take all the opportunity to promote your organization and your work from open heart. It's nothing like economics, but from an open heart, because I also agree, because when I attended your workshop, I literally found the gaps which was keeping me aback, which was keeping me stuck up. Yes, I had that passion, I had that dedication, but things were not moving even with my startup, because that seven aspects were missing. So you know that was very very thoughtful and insightful. And Arindam, as a parting note, if you would like to say something to the entrepreneurs and to the viewers, I would be most thankful.
So first of all, a lot of thanks for the words that you have placed, and it was great to speak with you and use this platform to reach out to more people. And I hope my words can give a bit of inspiration to the set of entrepreneurs or the set of people who are looking forward to make a great career or a great business for themselves. So, as a parting word, I would say if it's for the entrepreneurs that keep going, keep stay motivated. It's very important because in such turbulent times, keep yourself motivated is the first thing that one has to really focus on. It's not so easy as it is said. I totally understand. So stay motivated, stay with the drive, and keep yourself close to all the negative stuff that is happening, and be focused. I think if we can do this part of it, this is going to make a huge impact in terms of what we are trying to do. So that's the thing that I
That's
want to
great.
share.
That's great. And as an ending note, I would like to add, with permission from Arindam, stay relevant. That's one of
Absolutely.
the most I would say significant part in giving direction to in a life. Whether you have to stay out of negativity, you have to stay relevant to the passion, to the dream, to the vision that you are developing. Because when you are staying relevant, nothing can impact you from outside. So, with that parting note, I wish you all the best, Arindam. It's been a great, great talk, and I hope we will talk, in coming days, talking about more about entrepreneurship. And for today, I thank you for taking out this time. It's been great, and for now, wishing you all the best. Take care. Stay
Thanks,
safe.
Sanjay. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.